I should just switch this off because it annoys.
They never stopped me mid-grew.
No!
I have to restart. I have to restart the arm. Yeah.
That was so good.
Greetings, I'm Rob Chappers.
And I'm the captain.
Oh, it's a Victory amplifier.
Ah, not just any old Victory amplifier, but the one that kind of started it all, I think. Yes, brief history of the world. Victory way back when, I don't even remember when, 2014, 2013, something like that. Made some big, posh, hand-wired, British-built sexual amplifiers by a chap called Martin Kidd.
If loving the amp is wrong,
yes,
I don't want to be right.
And Guthrie Govan, the wonderful Guthrie Govan, was using these amplifiers on a big Stephen Wilson tour, loving them. And then he finished the tour, started doing his clinics again and flying off all around the world, and said to Martin, could you make one of them big amplifiers in a little thing that I can take around the world with me, you know, dual voltage and compact and blah-de-blah. So the original V30 was born. I always think that the name is misleading on the V30 because although it was originally a 30-watt amplifier, one of the bits of feedback from Guthrie in the when he had his first prototype was, could they make it louder? So Martin did something to the biasing. I think he switched it from a cathode biased amp to a fixed biased amplifier. That added about 10 watts to the power. Guthrie went, ka-ching, I like it. But the brochures had already been printed. So despite the fact that I think this is 42 watts, it has always been called the V30.
Oh, right.
Confused?
That's really funny.
You should be. Anyway, so V30 in the Victory range has been super, super popular for the last 4 years or so. But I think they thought it was time to do something a bit different. It has a big brother now called the V130 that has a switchable clean to a crunch channel as well as the overdrive channel. And there'd also been some of the criticisms of the original V30 were that the EQ was voiced quite darkly. So Victory at the beginning of 2018 unveiled an update to the V30. So it's the V30 Mark II. A revoiced EQ section, hopefully a little brighter and people will like that. A foot switchable and button switchable clean to crunch mode, which we'll demo at the moment. Still got the overdrive channel, still got the high and low output, all the other good stuff, effects loop, etc., etc. And then at the 11th hour, just as it was going through final testing, dear old Guthrie just went, oh, I don't know if I prefer this to the old one. I quite like the way the old one was voiced and, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da. So Martin came up with this genius button on the back, which if you didn't know what it was,
back in time button.
It's called no mod. So effectively, no mod, if you press it in, means there's no mod to the amplifier. So the EQ circuit is the same as Mark I. And so what you're hearing and what you'll hear for the bulk of this demo is the Mark II EQ section. And to top it all off, it is in a slightly glossier black finish. The previous one was a sort of a slightly matter black, and the Mark II is a slightly glossier black. Still made in the UK, still all valve, still got the option of buying this either with 6L6s or EL34s fitted.
Which one's this?
6L6s, I think.
That's the one I'll have then.
But the amp is, it's a bit of an odd one. Although if you look in the Victory catalogue and you go to most Victory retailers, you'll have the choice of buying either an EL34 one or a 6L6 one from new. They are exactly the same amplifier, just slightly different bias. So if you buy one and then think 6 months down the line, I wonder what it sounds like with the other ones. Fine. Take the lid off, change the valves, rebias, go. You are set.
Talking of bias, I mean, I'm biased.
Of course you are.
Because I'm a Victory amps artist. And
there's a little red amp on the top here.
That's one of mine. I've got another one too. And I really like the company, so I probably shouldn't say anything through the entire video. Just
play. I mean, we've got some pedals on the floor. Again, not a lot going into the front end. Into the front end is a Jim Dunlop mini wah and a Wampler Tumnus. Rob hasn't used the Tumnus hardly at all, but it's there just in case. And then through the effects loop is a T-Rex Roommate reverb pedal and an MXR carbon copy. So I've got a
TU2 as well, which obviously boosts the signal slightly.
So again, I think after the original V30 came out, which definitely was a sort of a jack of all trades amp. It was like, if you want something that can do a nice clean sound and a nice gain sound, like a lot of 2-channel amplifiers, that was the vibe. And then Victory kind of went off on this, we'll do a specialist kind of blues amp in the Duchess, and we'll do a specialist metal amp in the Kraken, and we'll do a specialist plexi amp in the Sheriff and all. And I think the V30 kind of got just a little bit forgotten about. But it's good to revisit this, because I still think of all the amps in the Victory range, it is the one to buy if you need an amp to do a bit of everything.
Interesting. That's a really interesting point. It's like an audio chameleon. Because I always thought the Kraken was like turn it up and hammer out the metals, but also it does a good crunch and an interesting modern clean. The RD1 is, in my opinion, throw and go. Turn it full on. It's a non-master all of a sudden. It's a plexi on roids. Don't do roids. The Sheriff 22, it's an unashamed golden thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's another name for Sheriff.
And then I never really knew where the good old V30 sat within that remit of what it was. But I think you're right. I think it's an audio chameleon.
Going back to Martin Kidd's sort of lineage and heritage, if you like, when he was Cornford's chief designer, the sort of the two, there was a 50 watt and a 100 watt. Was it 50 and 100 watt head? I'm trying to remember what it was, but there was like a 30 watt and a 50 watt head. So you had the Hellcat, I think it was and the MK50.
Hellcat, such a good amplifier. It was my favourite amplifier. Probably it's in the top 3 of my favourite amps of all time.
Totally.
And the first 2 are both Victory amps that Martin designed.
And then in the original Victory range, the 50 watt, which I think was called the Earl, was very much kind of the essence of those amplifiers living on under the Victory sort of thing. So if you think that the V30 was effectively the compact version of the Earl that Guthrie was using, you can definitely feel that kind of, if you're a fan of some of Martin's older amplifiers, this is probably where you're going to feel most at home. Anyway, enough talky. Let's try beautiful clean tones. So you can see on the front here, we've got a clean gain with a matching clean master volume control. If I pop the clean gain control out like that, it'll crunch mode. You can do that with a foot switch as well. Overdrive over here with its own separate master volume, and then a simple 3-band EQ, of which we've turned a little bit of the treble off in here. Perhaps it's just because we're in the room and it's sounding a bit bright. We're running that into a couple of Victory cabs behind us. You're going to hear a blend of the two, and we're running it predominantly in the high power mode, because I think that allows the tone to sort of bloom, a bit more bass end in there. If we go to the low power mode, as well as getting less volume, you get a slightly more compressed tone as well, which you might like. Anyway. Put some delay on and play something sort of super ambient. I'll put the modulation on as well. So, we'll pop the delay off for a minute now. So the first thing obviously we can do is go to a crunch tone, and depending again on where the gain setting for the clean channel is set will depend on how much crunch you've got. So with single coil pickups, you'll get some quite nice, just a little bit of hair, and with the humbuckers on here, you'll get a pretty gainy tone. So. Can you just coil tap like the neck pickup for me? And again, it'll just give it a bit of hair, I think. Great blues tone. If we pop the tumness on now, what we're going to end up with is an amplifier that ends up having like 6 different channels or something like that, because of course you can overlay a boost pedal to the crunch tone and give yourself an alternative to the full bore driven tone.
Yeah, so without.
So all that really what is basically just a sort of a tweaked clean channel. Over to the overdrive channel, there's bucket loads of gain on here, so you know, be careful where you set it. Guthrie, I think, because of the amount of legato he does, always has a lot of gain on his tone. But this isn't just for, you know, players that want to play that kind of stuff. It's great for classic rock and stuff like that as well. So here we go, one overdriven channel, no pedal. And that's just the reverb pedal on there, nothing else. Let's, if I we do a little bit of like, what's it like with hardly any gain on it? Is that a good rhythm, sort of?
It's a little bit nasally now because it's lacking that power valve push.
Yeah. around the other way and we'll put like 3/4 of the gain.
It's interesting. You know what it's got?
What's it got?
Well, I hate to use another brand, but it's got the same kind of gain that the Rockabove 50s had a while back.
Right.
And they were really good. And it's that saturated, won't stop singing kind of vibe, but it's speaking brighter, which is really nice.
I mean, I always thought that Martin Kidd's kind of vibe was this transatlantic tone where it definitely took its roots from a sort of a high gain British sound, but it added the bass end in that you'd more associated with a high gain American tone. But yeah, keep playing. There we go. And can we just, I'm going to do the no mod demo as well, but I just want to see, again, if you use a tumnus over the gain channel with it sort of halfway, can it go from like does it add that singing kind of mid-range thing?
It's definitely adding sustain. So if I go...
So, one last final thing then. We'll just do the no mod versus the mod so you guys can hear, because I'm sure a lot of people that own the Mark I will want to upgrade to the Mark II, and that'll probably put some Mark I amps onto the market second hand. So anyway, if I go to, I've just set all the EQ now at 12 o'clock.
So it sounds
no
like
pedals apart from reverb on the gain channel, and I'll switch the no mod in and out. So
I'll just play rhythm so
yeah.
It's does that.
There's quite a lot more bass end on Mark I. So the Mark I setting to me is bassier and darker, and therefore perhaps less defined, comes a bit sort of flabby maybe. And then the Mark II has got a little bit less bass end, and a little bit more brightness to it as well.
I think that would be really useful. It's the switch that I'll put gaffer over if I'm touring.
Oh, for sure.
But it's probably quite useful depending on which cab you're going through, because if you're going through a 412 and you don't need that extra low, then you leave it in 2. But if you're going through a 112 and it's sounding a bit pants, I'd slap it back in no more.
The switch, I don't think, was designed to be a feature other than, you know, when you know, I know when Martin heard that Guthrie was like, oh, I can't decide if I like the old one or the new one the best, you know, and it's like, oh no, what do you do? What do you do? I know, let's just put a switch on it and it can be whatever mood you're in on the day. You can have either the old one or the new one. I'm just
amazed that Martin has any time left in the day and that the military haven't snapped him up for a Black Ops audio weaponry project.
No, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. So we'll do some sweeps at the front and the back of this so you can kind of see what's on the back. Do you want to just quickly hear the low mode? Like if you're, you know, if you're
wait, here's a sweep from the front and there's on the back. There you go.
So if we went, like what's the kind of lowest volume I can realistically get out of this and still get a tone? Let's see. Keep playing. I mean that's not bedroom volume, but it's like quiet rehearsal volume, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm trying to get this lick, I can't do it. That's it. I can't do it.
So there we go. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the latest thing from Victory, the V30 MkII, sometimes called the Countess Mark II.
That's the for me.
Yes.
Chink in the armour.
You don't like the names.
Countess. Why couldn't it have been called something like the Chameleon?
Chameleon. But anyway, so there you go.
What would you call it if you ran this company? What would you call that amp?
I know. I think there was definitely. I know, Dave. Yeah.
Dave.
I know that again from talking to Martin and the various powers that be there. I think. Although they liked originally the idea of it all being names of like aristocratic titles, the bigger the range gets, the more difficult it is.
But was
that
only because Guthrie's and the aristocrats?
No, although isn't that weird? No, I don't think that ever came up. I think it was just, you know.
I think it should be called the Govan Superhead.
There was definitely, I think the guys wanted, they wanted actual names rather than model numbers, so they didn't want. What did you say?
I said it should be called the Govan Superhead. And then Pete.
Yeah, no, I think this is the issue, isn't it? Well, whatever. Names, numbers.
You know what?
At the end of the day, still an amp. Yes, and I've been the captain.
See you later.
Bye. Ka-ching.
Don't do roids.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the Andertons Guitar YouTube channel. If you're a drummer or a keyboard player or interested in music technology, you might find one of our other channels interesting, and I'll put details of those in the description below. If you want to find out more about the products we've just featured, please click here. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt like this, please click here. If you want to watch another video on our guitar channel, click down here. And to subscribe to our guitar channel, click here. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.